Hello everyone, welcome. This is Eric KJ4YZI with HamRadioConcepts. Another quick 5-minute video back to the Pi Star for the Jumbospot, or a lot of hotspots that use the Pi Star interface. Now it's come to my attention from a couple people that said I move a little too fast when it comes to a video like this and they don't quite understand. So we're going to make another video here touching on programming Pi Star for DMR. Okay, now I do have a video I showed you how to set this up for D-Star because a lot of people had issues with that. And now we're going to show you DMR to correct issues you may have to get you on the air with your DMR radio. Now what I'm going to do to start is I have this thing programmed right now for D-Star, but I'm going to factory reset this thing back to square one and we'll do it together. So let me go here to configuration and we're going to go to factory reset and I'm going to wipe this thing out. Okay, and we're going to start over from scratch. Now here it is factory reset and we're going to start first. Let's look at the dashboard and make sure no mode defined. Okay, I don't know what mode I am in. So let's go ahead and go to configuration. And to start, control software needs to be MMDVM host and simplex node. If you click this button right here, this is not going to apply to what I'm about to show you. So these two, you're going to hit apply. Now when you click apply, it takes about 15-20 seconds, so I'll cut here. And at this point, after about 20 seconds, you'll get a letter that says the modem selection section has been updated. Please reselect your modem. Now it gives you options as to what modem you want to turn on for the mode of your hotspot. Now, this is the Jumbospot, but this is identical to the NanoSpot and some other hotspots like the Zoomspot or some other ones that may do. I'm not familiar with all the digital hotspots, but this one will do multiple modes. Okay, so what we're going to do now with this new menu here is we're going to turn on DMR. Okay. The values over here are the hang times, and what these are set to default at 20 seconds, what they are for is if you decide to run multiple modes at one time. If this didn't have a 20 in here, as soon as you let go of transmit or the person you're talking to ended transmit, if there was somebody on Yaesu System Fusion, it would automatically switch to that mode. So what this 20 seconds does is allow the repeater, the hotspot, to sit there and listen to the other person you're talking to. Chances are if 20 seconds goes by, your conversation is over and it's going to go back into scanning for the next available digital mode that is active on your hotspot. So in 20 seconds, if you're done on DMR, it'll go back into scan and maybe somebody on P25 is on. It's going to switch to P25. So for this video here, we're going to turn on only DMR. We're going to set the display to the OLED, and that's very important because you won't see anything on the display unless you set OLED. Now, if you are an advanced user and you want to use another type of external display, you can set that here, but we're going to choose OLED, and we're going to leave these two alone. The next gen layout and the port, those should be just like this. I haven't touched them. And we're going to click apply, and I'm going to pause and skip through. And after about 20 seconds, you'll get this screen again. Now, as far as you're concerned, and make sure you watch the whole video because there's something else I'm going to show besides this configuration page. So at this point, you're set right now to DMR, but it doesn't know who you are or what your frequency is. So let's move to the next one, the General Configuration tab. Now, this tab is very important. This call sign right here is going to be your call sign. You're not going to name it a call sign of your friend, or you're not going to make up a call sign. You're not going to add anything to that call sign. You're going to put your call sign in the node call sign. The DMR ID is another important feature. If you don't have your DMR ID in here, it will not work. With that being said, if you've never registered for a DMR ID on the network, it will not work. If your DMR ID you've registered but hasn't been activated, it will not work. So you have to have your DMR ID in that box. And you're not going to add a 1 to it. You're not going to add a 0 to it. you're going to have the same DMR ID in here as you will on your OpenSpot, your DV Mega, and whatever else you're using. I don't think DV Mega does D-Star or DMR. I can't even remember anymore. So I left Pi-Star here. We have my node call sign. We have the DMR ID. And now the frequency. The frequency, you want to choose a UHF frequency on this Jumbospot. And you want to make sure it's a frequency that you can access with your radio. Typically, a standard radio without a Mars mod will not do 438 on FM unless you have an unlocked radio, which most of the TYTs and the other ones nowadays are unlocked 400 to 480. But if you're using a Yaesu or an ICOM that is factory that won't do 438.800, this has to be changed. Now, in my video, I chose 435. My radio would do 435, and yours may do too. But we'll put in for this demonstration 446.500. Now, that might be, that's a unassigned repeater frequency. That shouldn't be on a repeater. But if it is, not in my area at least. So you want to make sure you research the frequency that is a simplex frequency that you can use that is not on a repeater input or output. Also, you can set this as the same frequency as your other hotspots. The only problem is you can't have those hotspots on at the same time. So if you want to run 3 different hotspots, you need to choose a different frequency for each hotspot. So if I had an open spot, I may make the open spot 445.500, so it's not the same because they will get stuck in a loop if that's the situation. So just for demonstration, I'll leave you pick the frequency you want. I'm just choosing, for the video's sake, 446.500. Now, latitude, longitude, for your location if you choose to put that in there. All right, your town. And then your URL for your QRZ bio, if you want like this. I think that's what the address is. Radio modem type, another very important part here. Okay, there's a lot that you can use in here. If you go choosing one that I don't tell you to choose, it's not going to work. All right, so what we're going to choose is this right here. STM32-DVM, MMDVM, Raspberry Pi hat. Okay, you can, if you know what you're doing, to do other things for this video. If you want this to work when you're done with this video, you're going to click this one right here. All right, node type private. America, New York, Eastern time zone, or if you live in Mexico, you can pick some other time zone. All right, I'll leave it online. And now we're going to click Apply Changes. This will take 20 seconds, so I'll cut here. Okay, so we have our DMR mode. We have our information here. We have the DMR configuration. Now, this next piece is basically your server for where you're connecting through, not your talk group. This is not your talk group. This is a server for, half of it I don't understand, the other half I don't want to explain. So what I'm going to do to make this easy is I'm going to choose what I normally choose, which is the Brandmeister United States 3102 server. That is not the talk group that you're talking to, okay? So if you're in the United States, you could pick one of these here, and you should be able to get on with no problem, or if you're in Germany, or if you're in Mexico, or wherever. So we're going to pick 3102. My color code, another very important aspect to DMR is the color code. The color code varies by area, so you want to make sure you have the right color code. Mine is 1. And I'm going to leave the dump data on. I don't even know what that's for. And we're going to click Apply Changes. And you can see I'll cover this too while this is waiting. All these dots here are in private. I haven't touched this. I'm not going to touch it. But while this resets, I'll show you the last most important piece of information to get you on the air with this. All right. At this point, before we go to the last step, this configuration is ready. But before you go past this, one more thing you need to verify to make sure that this is working for you. Now, we're going to go to Expert, and you see a bunch of choices in here and a warning. So read this warning that if you screw up something in here, you'll have to start over. We're going to go in this video to the MMDVM host right here. And this is going to be some advanced level situation programming here. Now you can see my call sign and ID is here. Okay, but what you want to do, and here's my frequency, but you don't want to be changing the frequency in here. You can do it just as easy on the configuration page. If you scroll down here to modem. Now, right here, if you've factory reset and updated your software, this is going to be changed. When if you watched the video on the Jumbospots that I did end up making a video on, and I sold a few of them, those were set at negative 475. Now, let me explain this for a second. All of these China Zoom spots and hotspots are all usually set with an offset. And what I mean by offset is each and every one of these that are made are not exactly on frequency. They may be a little bit off frequency. So to correct that, you set an offset so that your radio pairs with the hotspot perfectly so you don't have a bit error rate, you don't lose packets. Now, these should have been set, all the ones I had were set at negative 475, I guess that would be hertz. Okay. Now, there are other manufacturers of hotspots that put a sticker on the bottom, and when you open up the case, you can see a sticker. The ones that I had didn't seem to have the sticker, but the manual that I showed in the video showed that batch was negative 475. Now, if you bought your Jumbospot from anywhere else but me, this number may be different. But let's start at negative 475 on the receive offset and transmit offset. That is saying you're compensating for the off frequency of the unit itself. So that, because digital is a little different. Analog, you may have a little bit of it would sound off frequency. It would have a little bit of a buzzing, or maybe not so intelligible, sound like you're talking in a tin can in a bathroom. You know, the digital, when it's not on frequency, you're losing packets. And when you lose packets, your voice is essentially ones and zeros. Your voice is going into the front of the radio as ones and zeros. And those ones and zeros are getting collected, put into the hotspot on the internet, through the internet, and they come back out the other side as ones and zeros, which your radio turns into an audible voice. So we're going to start at negative 475. Now it is up to you, wherever you got your hotspot or however your radio works, to determine, do you need to change this to a lower number because your bit error rate is just a little bit high? Or do you need to go up in frequency or numbers? So I guess you could start at negative 475 and go up and down. It may be that your bit error rate is 0.5% with 475, but it's 0.3% with negative 350. And then you may end up finding out that negative 250 is 0.0 bit error rate. You have a perfect signal going into the hotspot, and everybody's happy. So negative 475 on the one that I have in my hand that I use seems to work at a 0.1 to a 0.2 bit error rate. If you're seeing on the dashboard a bit error rate of 19%, it's not going to work. So you have to manipulate this number. The rest of the stuff you can leave alone, but if you change this, you're going to click apply. This one reconfigures or saves just a little bit faster. See, that's already done. Now you can transmit, make a contact. Well, that looks a little bad on the bit error rate, and move down in small increments. And every time you do, you should see a different, or maybe you can go by 100. You can go negative 375. And then negative 275. And I haven't had one that's positive or plus, but maybe there's one out there. So that's a lesson on the offset. So you hit apply, and that should change that. The rest of this stuff I didn't change. You shouldn't have to change. So at that point right now, I'm going to switch cameras, and we're going to test, and I'm going to show you just quickly now how the radio interacts with the hotspot as far as talk groups and connecting, so that way you're familiar with how that works. And take note here that we have DMR green, DMR network is green, we're connected, but look at this. Not linked, not linked. We are not linked to any talk group because we haven't told the hotspot what to do from the radio yet. So now let's look at the radio and how this thing connects. Okay, so here's the hotspot set up in DMR mode. You can see that you have a screen scrolling, and your hotspot may vary depending on what you're using. This is the Jumbospot. So it's scanning or listening right now on DMR. So you might think, well, how do I connect to a talk group to make a contact with somebody? Well, you're going to use your radio to do that. And I haven't made a video on this yet, but this is by Retivis. If I can get this zoomed out here. This is the Retivis HD1 or the Alluence HD1, a really brute force DMR handheld. But what I have done for the purpose of this video is I haven't even put a code plug or anything in here. But what I did was I threw a frequency in here and a couple talk groups to show you. Now, let's for instance, we're going to connect to the 31010 talk group, which is actually linked to D-Star, Yaesu Fusion, DMR, Echolink, All-Star, and IRN. That's a huge gateway. So in my radio, and I'm not going to show you what I did because it's messy. I just threw a couple talk groups in here. But the bottom line is you're going to use your radio to change talk groups, okay? So if I look in here, I'll show you for a second. I have contacts in here. You can see I have 1 for Treasure Coast, 2 for TAC 310, 3 for TAC 311, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this to the, let's see, I think it's, and I'm not sure if that's in Texas, but that's 31010, and I have that, so that's where I want to talk, okay? Now, watch this. I push the button, and you're going to see on the screen 31010, okay? So let's see if we can get somebody on here for a second. KJ4YZI testing my Jumbospot on DMR. Anybody around? So now see if you look on here, it shows you. It's listening. Remember that 20 seconds I told you about? It's listening.
KJ4YZI, NHJUC, loud and clear. How about that?
N8JUC, very good. KJ4YZI. I'll get back to you shortly. I'm just testing something real quick with this Jumbospot and wanted to make sure that the new config worked. But we'll get back to you. KJ4YZI, thanks for the report. DMR is working, okay? And let's talk about this here.
You're welcome. I'll go back to work. NHJUC.
I don't mean to run him off, but I'm on a video. So let's talk about this. If you're not seeing anything when you push this button, okay, if you're not seeing transmitting, your radio is not set properly to talk to the DMR. I mean, most of the case. If you followed this video and you set the hotspot up like this, see right now it's listening. If you're transmitting and nothing's coming up, there's something wrong where the radio is not telling the hotspot on that frequency what to do, or the hotspot is not listening on that frequency, okay? So now I can go like this. Here, we'll do this. We'll go, and again, I'm not going to show you what I'm doing here because this radio is not programmed. I do not want to confuse you, but we're going to go to, let's try Treasure Coast. That is a local one to me. Now, watch this. If I want to change to Treasure Coast, I just changed it in my radio. But this has done nothing to the hotspot unless I just bump the PTT button. And if you've seen on DMR or D-Star, you may see call signs all day long popping up, boop, boop, and they're not saying anything. That may be because they're keying up to activate that talk group on their hotspot. So watch this. I just changed it to a 31123. And you can see Jan, KK4GGJ, is there. Now this hotspot is set to 311.
The bellhop is a multifaceted individual, typically the station engineer.
I just changed it. Okay, it's working. Anyway. Now let's look at what the dashboard looks like with me doing this. Here,
retracted the antenna elements.
Let me jump in here on Jan just to make sure.
Connectors off. So, we never know what's going on. I don't crank it up and down every day, though. So, I just don't leave it. I have the summer height and I have the winter height. So, I leave more tower doubled at the top there, the inside and outside on the crank up than I do in the summer. I leave more doubled than the minimum in the winter.
Real quick in and out. KJ4YZI for a test. I know these guys. They'll let me jump in there. Jim might pick on me, though.
Well, I'll be real quick. You sound okay there, Eric? KB4OVL and Jan's in here also.
And someone's got a call on my phone. And I just ripped the power cord out of that phone. I have a landline and one person has that number and that's not the person. This is real, folks. This is what happens when you make videos after working all day. So, all right, Jan, I'll get back to you. KJ4YZI. You see, I got people jumping, chomping at the bit to talk to me on this hotspot. So,
Answer your text, Eric. KB4OVL.
Let's look at the dashboard. And here's the dashboard. So you can see right here, KB4OVL right now is talking. He's talking with KK4GGJ. And it'll show you their loss and bit error rate. You can see here I had 0.2%. Now I could tweak that, but nobody's said anything wrong, so I'm not going to touch it. Another thing to note now is, check this out. So time slot 1 is disabled. It's very important when you make your code plug on your radio that you're doing it for time slot 2. If you're transmitting on time slot 1, that's a problem. Okay? So time slot 2, and people have said they never changed it and it worked just fine, but I'm just trying to help you out here. You can see here, though, I'm transmitting on time slot 2. And you can see I'm linked to this talk group here. So it's linked. You remember before it wasn't linked, okay? So this is what's going on right now. I hope this was the most I hope this was the most comprehensive D-star or DMR Pi-star config that you've seen. Give a thumbs up for the effort of making this video and hope to work you on the air one day. 7-3 from KJ4YZI.